Happy Mother's Day to all of you who are moms, who are moms by biological birthing, by spiritual birthing, by economical or social birthing, and that includes pretty much all of us here in the center. So I want to welcome you all as we celebrate the mother side of life. So I'm going to begin with a meditation. So I ask that you just simply relax in your chair or wherever you are. And just for now, let all pass away. Let just all thought, all concern, all questions, and just simply be where you're at. Feel your body relax. As we relax, allow my words to be your words in this meditation. So as I breathe, I'm aware that I am in this large womb, this egg of the universe. And in this egg of the universe, I'm aware of the warmth and the love, the nurturingness of the universe. I am aware of its love for me, and it's bringing about my good. And as I float in this divine liquid of life, I am reminded that I am supported, that I am buoyant. And this life-enriching fluid is all around me. I feel life in all of its ways within this egg of the universe, in this womb, as I develop and form, as I receive its ideas and ideals, as I know my oneness with this universe. Its wisdom is my wisdom. Its life is my life. As I begin to experience the very slow cracking of that egg, I realize that I'm being born into a physical form. I am male and female. And yet I know I am part of this divine universe. Its wisdom, its life, its fluid is within me, never to be forgotten but fulfilled through me, as me in this world. So as I'm aware of this day and every day, I relax into that divine wisdom, that feminine life that is mine. And with that comfort, with that awareness, with that conviction, I come back to the space where I'm at here, fully aware, fully alive, fully awake to my own divinity, my own femininity, and my own strength and wisdom. As I celebrate that, I see that in every person I see in this form of humanness. I see it in nature and Mother Earth. I see it everywhere I look. It is as if we are all still in that divine egg of the universe, just simply here on Mother Earth. With this, I rejoice and I release these words knowing that I'm already experiencing this, already embodying this truth. And feeling that, I can simply say, thank you, God. And so it is. So this morning, I always like to think of Mother's Day and Father's Day as brackets. Instead of honoring like we do it in the secular society, Mother's Day and Father's Day is separate. I like to think of them as brackets. And if you know me at all, you hear, and as you've heard me speak over the years, I love Advent and Christmas. It is my favorite time of year. And why is that? It's because we are in that process of realizing and getting ready for that divine birth, that birth of Jesus in the chronological time, and that divine birth of ourselves, and that incarnational theology of God is actually being born within us again and again and again every year. And how do I prepare that? And so too with Mother's Day and then Father's Day in June, to be aware of my own feminine side, my own masculine side, how neither one has the power to be on its own, but they are both interdependent. And so I start this talk today with that idea or that place of living. So I want to read with you the scripture passage that I chose for today. It's from Jeremiah 1, verses 4 through 8. Now the word of God came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you prophet and prophetess to the nations. And then I said, oh God, truly I do not know how to speak, for I'm only a child. But God said to me, do not say I am only a child, for you shall go to all to whom I send you, and you shall speak whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, says God. So that's a powerful passage. And it's also a very common theme as we would read the Christian scriptures of one being commissioned, one being invited into that role to be a prophet or prophetess. And we are all called to that in different ways, but still we're all called to be a prophet or prophetess in our life. And what does that mean? How does that look? How does that manifest itself? So I wish to go into to honor those women of the centuries. I wish to honor them by reading some of the Christian mystics. And I have here a book by Matthew Fox called Christian Mystics. And I'm going to read some readings from here of some of the women I've really been moved by in my life. Julian of Norwich, she says, just as God is truly our Father, so also is God truly our Mother. The deep wisdom of the Trinity is our Mother. In her we are all enclosed. She celebrated the theme of God as Mother. True to ancient traditions, both biblical and otherwise, she sees wisdom, or Sophia in Greek. And Sophia is a feminine word. As feminine, indeed, as Mother in whom all things are enclosed. So, and I'm sure some of you have read Julian of Norwich, or Mathilde of Magdeburg, or Hildegard of Bingen. And from the historical Jesus, the queendom of God is among you. So do not look here or there, says Jesus. The queendom of God is not a thing. It is not an object. It is not something that is about to happen. It already happened. It is among us. And this gets back to my love for Advent and Christmas. We have to clean up our perception to see it better, to breathe its presence among us. It is a relationship, many relationships. We are challenged to think of ourselves in relationship rather than as objects, as me and you, and self and other. Develop an amoneness consciousness, that is, a relation consciousness. And then the last one is by McTill. I who am divine am truly in you. I can never be sundered from you, however far we parted. Never can we be separated. I am in you and you are in me. We could not be any closer. We two are fused into one, poured into a single mold, thus unwearied, we shall remain forever. So if you have a chance, this is a good book to go through. It's like daily readings. And so I often use this in my daily reading practice. So some of that idea of the feminine, and again, I have a book on Hildegard. I have quite a few books of her writings, and I have many CDs of her music. So she sees the universe as an egg, which I used in the meditation. And in this way, she encompasses the microcosm and the macrocosm we talk about in unity philosophy, that as it is in heaven, it is also done on earth. And as it is done in that divine idea, it is also manifested in our own daily lives. Now, I could not get a good representation of the yin and yang symbol. I have tons of books on Chinese medicine, and darned if I can't find most of them. So they're somewhere in a white box, and all my boxes of books are white boxes. So there you go. But if you know the yin and yang symbol, it's a interdependent, interrelational symbol. And if you have the part that is white and the part that is black, you also have the dot in the belly of each that is of the opposite color. So the part of the yin and yang symbol, the yin, tends to be the darker. In some cultures it's red, some it's black. And that is the feminine side, the mystical, the intuitional, the feeling side. But in that belly, you have the birthing of the masculine. And so within the feminine is already the birthing of the masculine. And then as you see that white portion of the yin and yang symbol, that is the birthing and the growing of the masculine side. And yet then in the belly of the masculine side is already the birthing of the feminine. So they actually birth each other into existence, into manifestation. And they cannot be separated, cannot have only one or the other. And I believe that that is the true nature of our divine nature that we hold, is that we're both masculine and feminine, and they're interrelated, and we are to see them both as co-creating each other, and in the universe we see as our manifest lives. Now I wish to, and I'd love to always come back to the metaphysical Bible here, because in the story of Christmas, I always talk about Joseph and Mary, Joseph being more of the head and Mary being more of the heart. And the energy of Mary, or of the feminine side, is always of that intuition, of that allowing to be a place where birth happens. And so here it says in the metaphysical Bible, it's the feminine or the soul or the affectional and emotional phase of a person's being, both when seemingly bound and limited by sensate thought and in its freed, exalted state. Mary, the mother of Jesus, represents the soul that magnifies the Lord daily in the temple, and through its devotions prepares itself for the higher life. She signifies the divine motherhood of love. She can also be said to be intuition. The soul is devout and expectant. It believes in the so-called miraculous as a possibility. Mary expected the birth of the Messiah according to the promise of the Holy Spirit. She was overshadowed by that high ideal, and it formed in her mind and the seed that quickened into the cell. And in due season, there were aggregations of cells strong enough in their activity to attract the attention of the outer consciousness, and what is called the birth of Christ took place. So that side of us, that soul side, is that side where these ideas get birthed, get created and nurtured and birthed and then manifested into life. So I want to ask a question for us to ponder in this coming week. How do we in our meditation come back to that soul side of ourselves? How do we ready ourselves to birth what is to be birthed into this world? And I would like to encourage that in our daily meditation, we see how we can birth with that high idea, this divine reality into our existence. So the head and the heart, the body and soul, male and female, together they work, but it begins with the feminine side of having that idea, and then that allowing, that nurturing takes place, and the male energy begins to build it or set it in place or manifest it into the actual physical world. So there's a book that I have here, The Art of Being a Healing Presence. And I just want to recount or to maybe share a little bit of how we do our work. The work is more the manifest, but where does that work come from? How is it formed, and how does it express that? So the healing presence, whether you're in a ministry or a cause or a movement or the creation or building of an institution of any kind in the manifest world, you are an artist, first and foremost. An art who sees with that metaphysical mind that perfect reality of what can be, and you birth that into this existence. So being an artist, we draw, we see that picture, and we painstakingly try to birth that awareness, or maybe it's a sculptor, maybe it's a garden, maybe it's a cause. How do we bring that into physical reality? And many of us in our culture, as human beings, we see ourselves as doing. And we forget sometimes our true nature as a being. So our human beingness, it's a little difficult for us in this Western society that we've been raised in to relax and simply be in that presence. So how do we in our daily lives go about being in that presence in the world? I know as a chaplain, many times I recently talked with a friend whose mother was just put into hospice. And as I was talking with him over the phone, I realized that I am coming out of my own sense of weakness. Usually I like to be holding somebody's hand or there physically with them and reading their body language and being that non-anxious presence with them. And all I could do is talk over the phone. So I had to imagine myself sitting next to him, holding his hand. And there is a temptation often in my life, I don't know about yours, but in my life to try to fix or to answer the questions, to console as to take away the pain, to answer the question, to share the knowledge I have, how important and how smart I am. And then when I get past that, I realize that that's not the strength that the people are looking for in my presencing with them. They are looking for somebody who can comfortably be walking alongside them with no answers, no theology, no fixing, but simply being with them. And it can be rather scary for a lot of us having grown in this culture. So it's that beingness of that feminine side, that soul side, of realizing our own interdependence with others, feeling the pain that they have, that empathizing and really feeling that, and being comfortable with not having the answer, but being just simply in their presence and being there with them. And I remember telling this friend, I said, well, I wanted to ask him a ton of questions. And so I was trying to catch myself and how much I was staying in my head at the time in the conversation. But at some point I said, what I can do is listen. And he said, that's all I need is somebody simply to listen to me. And so I said, okay, I got 2 years. I think I can do this. Matter of fact, I know I can do this. So most of an hour and a half, he talked. Most of it was not about his mother's being in hospice or his relationship with his mother, but I found him going off in different tangents, causes, political agenda, things like that. And I would simply take a breath and say, okay, this is where he's, okay, we're going here. Okay, we're going there. Okay, we're going over here now. And simply to stay in that beingness with him. And after that, close to an hour and a half of being with him on the phone, he was beginning to laugh and sound positive and energetic. Whereas when I first started, he sounded very depressed and gloomy and not knowing which way to turn. So just in that experience, I realized that getting my head out of the way and simply following by my heart, I could walk alongside him in that energetic way. And I can only do this beginning with myself. Right? It is within me to realize my non-anxious presence, to be aware of my anxiety, my temptation to fix or to sound intelligent or smart or to be wise, to look good. So I begin there by first changing my own perspective, working on me, and then manifesting that outward. So I know too that this friend, like many other friends, they have their own wisdom within them. And it's not for me to impart some divine knowledge or theological essay that I've studied. It is merely by knowing that presence within them that they already have the answer. And I'm there holding that presence, waiting to help give birth to that answer within them. So it's very much like a midwife, just breathing, encouraging them to continue breathing through that process and knowing that they already have that answer within and waiting for that answer to reveal itself. So we're equals in this. I'm not better than them at all. I'm not higher than them. I'm not smarter than them. But just being with them and walking alongside them, I can acknowledge their own divinity. And there are times when I don't know how my walking alongside people will take its form. Sometimes it's just sharing a story or sharing an insight. Sometimes it's being vulnerable and sharing my own weaknesses that people say, never thought of it that way. That makes sense to me. Or you too? I've struggled with that for many years, and I'm glad to know that somebody else struggles with that as well. So that healing presence isn't an active sense like we might see out in the world, but more of a passive sense. And so there's that idea of connectedness. And in that connectedness, I realize that all life is sacred. And I forget the gentleman's name, but I was thinking of the song, All Life is Holy Now. Just how God is not just in the church or in the theology or in the symbols, but God is in the breath and nature and in each human and each living being on this planet. So I just invite you to be aware of that as we go forward in this day. And there's this wonderful book called Breathing Underwater by Richard Rohr. We're currently having a class of this at Unity Minneapolis on the 12 steps of spirituality. And one thing that I've been wanting to actually print out and have in different places in the house, it says this. He says here, grace will always favor the prepared mind. And he says, maybe I can sum it up in this way. God is humble and never comes if not first invited. God will find some clever way to get invited. So the universe, if we don't allow the universe in, we don't invite the universe, that wonderful feminine energy and that masculine energy, it will somehow find a way to get invited into our lives. Some of us, it's that very quiet wind. Some of us, it might be in a song or a smile or the tail wagging of a dog. It might be simply the connectedness with other people as we can during this time. And sometimes it's a 2x4. Sometimes it's a crisis. Sometimes it's through pain that invitation comes. So to be open to that. And in this pandemic, some people have experienced it as the 2x4. Some have experienced it as a bit of a nuisance. But in all cases, all of these suggest that God finds a way to get invited if we've not invited God into the process. I'm going to leave with one short thing here from Sally McFagg, The Body of God. She's into ecological justice. And I know some of you really manifest your life with social justice and ecological justice. So she says here, those who fought the plague in Albert Camus' novel by that name did not expect to exterminate the plague or even to escape it themselves. They only decided to live differently while they did live, to live as if life mattered while they had it, to live with integrity in light of the brutal reality that defined their world. One has to get up in the morning and look in the mirror. It may come to nothing more than that. But one does have to get up in the morning and keep going. How do you do that? Through the centuries, Christians have typically done so by being deeply rooted, personally and daily rooted, in God. Social justice and spirituality are not opposite tracks. Then she goes on to talk about the Quaker abolitionists, Sojourner, Dorothy Day, and a number of other people that have exemplified that. And I want to leave you with a story and an invitation. So this invitation this week is to not only honor all those that are mothers in our lives, all these different people, but also realizing our own motherhood ourselves, our own femininity, our own soul, and how we express that and what we are called to do as a prophet or prophetess in this world. So, and this is from A Life of Being, Having, and Doing Enough by Wayne Mueller. When I worked as a chaplain for hospice, I used to think I always had to arrive prepared with something useful or important to say, something helpful, soothing, or comforting. It took me a long time to realize that people pressed up against the membrane of their own death and are not in need of advice, counsel, or pathetic, lame, fortune cookie wisdom. They are dying. Their lives are over. What I bring are my eyes, my ears, a loving, honorable witness to their simple magnificence as luminous children of creation, the reassurance of someone's hand gently holding their own as they cross over, Richard had been a beloved member of our community. Since the early days of the AIDS pandemic, Richard had served, fed, visited, helped, and advocated for people with AIDS. And there were a few among us who had not in some way been touched by his kindness, his spirit, his natural generosity and grace. Now it was Richard's time to go, as it was for so many in those years. Richard asked if I could visit with him regularly. He was troubled about his sexuality as a gay man, confused about whether AIDS was in fact a divine punishment for his sin, and if there was any hope of redemption or salvation. We spent many hours in his bed, he in his bed, on his back, me sitting in a chair, pulled up close to his side, so we could hold hands while we talked, and I could get him a glass of water or moisten his chapped lips. Reaching deep into my Harvard theological training, I tried to be an honorable companion in these religious discussions, never over many weeks together. The last time I saw Richard, we both understood this would be our last meeting in his short life. His body was deserting him. His soul was weary, ready to go. He thanked me for coming, for our conversations, for our visits. This time has been very healing for me, he said, turning his head slowly, barely able enough to be meeting my eyes. He reached for my hand and I gently took it. I have to admit, I really couldn't follow a lot of what you were trying to say, he said, his eyes still locked in mine. But, he said, I really love the sound of your voice. Excuse me. At this, we both laughed. Of course, he had seen through my desperate need to feel useful, smart, and spiritually helpful. And I saw that we had both been simply sitting, listening to each other, drinking from the same well, with no way of ever knowing, now no longer ever needing to know who served whom, who held who was the teacher, who was the student. It all dissolved into the joke of imagining that we were anything more than two young men walking the same path, being moved by the very same direction. And that's very touching because I had, in early March, lost another friend to AIDS, and I could not see him before he left this planet. So the idea of nurturing and mothering comes in many, many forms, many ways. So with that, I know this community as what it is, a strong, vibrant spiritual community. I know it to be a place of nurturing and acceptance. I know it to be not only a place, but a people, a movement, a feeling, a soul, energy that is nurturing, accepting, enlivening people, not only that come to the center, but are touched by many in the center. So I celebrate that divine feminine within each one of us today and every day. And I say thank you. With that, I yield back to Timothy.